Hello, hello, welcome, guys. I am coming over here to see this. Okay, I am Marcie Billen. I am a resident here in Norman, Oklahoma, and as you may have guessed, I am also a realtor here in Norman. So let me just check my sound really quick. It looks like I'm good. You guys just let me know if I am not good. There we go. Got it, got it, got it. Okay. So this is my weekly show where I cover some news from the Oklahoma City Metro, specifically, usually from Norman and the Oklahoma City Metro, and how it could affect life here in either Norman, Moore, or the Oklahoma City Metro. So thanks so much for joining. And we have some really interesting things to talk about today, or at least they're interesting to me. So please, if you have anything to add or any questions, you can comment and I can see all of the comments as they come in and I'll answer your questions. Cool. So let's have some fun and go over some news. And be sure to pipe in if you have something to say. All right, the first thing, and let me just share, kind of put these in here for you guys. There we go. I think that looks better. All right, so the first thing is that if you live here in Oklahoma, you may have noticed, sorry, my eye's a little messy today. It was raining this morning when I woke up. So I woke up at like 5 a.m. and it was raining pretty hard. I didn't wake up and stay awake at 5 a.m. I'm not an early riser. So it was raining pretty hard at 5 a.m. and it was very loud rain. Like it just came through and was just like pelting the roof. So that was a little disconcerting. Then it kind of quieted down. But yeah, let's go over some of this weather stuff. So interesting. So if you live here, you may have noticed that in August specifically, we had very extreme heat here in Oklahoma, and it felt a little bit different than heat in other years and other summers. And so there was an article in the Norman Transcript this week about this specific heat and why it happened. So this was a heat dome that occurred here in Oklahoma. And this article to me was really interesting because it explained like what the heat dome was, why the air wasn't moving around. Because if you live here, you like felt the stagnation of the air. And this meteorologist that was in this article here said that it was stagnant because the types of air that were kind of circulating couldn't mix, and so everything was just really still and really hot and kind of gross and like you were sitting in a sauna without any heat moving around. So if you do live here or if you're thinking about moving here, some people here describe themselves sort of as amateur meteorologists. So weather is something like I grew up watching the weather at least twice a day in my home. And now whenever I'm out and about multiple times a day, I check my weather app. And I'm not talking about Apple's weather app. I do have an iPhone, but I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the Forewarn weather app. And basically I can open it up and it will show me if there's rain clouds and where they're coming from. And most storms here move in a certain direction. They'll move typically from west to east or from southwest to northeast. And that's how storms move across. We can see them forming typically out in the Texas Panhandle. Like it's a whole thing. Like I don't want to watch the news because I just want the information. And so I just open up that app and like look at it and see, what's going on with the weather that day. So that's what I did this morning. When I woke up this morning, I opened up my app and saw this red cloud over us. And I was like, oh, that's why the rain is so loud, because red means that it's going to be really heavy. So that's what that is. But one thing in this article that they said was that they're spearheading a project here. You may or may not know that the Weather Center is here in Norman. It's partnered with like NORAD? I don't know, like whatever the weather people are called. I can't remember at the moment. And OU. But they're doing this special project that they're calling, this is the the definition of the project toward improving the simulation and prediction of extratropical northern hemisphere blocking patterns in extreme weather, which was like a lot of words altogether. But basically, it's going to receive like $700,000 over the next 3 years from the U.S. Department of Energy's Office of Biology and Environmental Science to study these really weird blocking patterns that are going on in the in the atmosphere, essentially. So let's see. Can I type the name of the weather app? Yes. So I think it's Forewarn because it's channel 4, right? So Forewarn. So channel 4 and then WARN. It's got a blue background, and I think I can probably post it in the comments too if you guys want to download it. It's very helpful. I even use it like when I'm in Texas. I used it when I was in Maine last year. It was really helpful to see where the storms were. It's I just don't have patience for the weathermen. Cool. Okay, so one thing about this, the Weather Center being in Norman is it does have a lot of people work there. So it is a big employer in Norman itself. So some new people are coming in to work on this specific project. Awesome. Well, if you guys have any more weather questions, I'm sure this is not the last time we're going to be talking about weather, and this is definitely not the first time. We are heading into fall, and that means we have rain usually, and then like bouts of some storms. Storms mostly happen in the springtime, and then as winter comes in, it's supposed to be really cold because I think we talked about that last week. So that's fun. All right. The next thing I'm not moving on to politics necessarily, but I kind of am moving on to politics. It says I'm not going to talk about politics and like, oh, this person is horrible and this person's great. I want to talk about this election thing that I saw in the Oklahoman. So I only took one article out of the Norman transcript this week, and I got the rest from the Oklahoman. The Oklahoman is the Oklahoma City newspaper, but they have really good stuff. So this is all about ranked choice voting. And I've known about ranked choice voting for several years, and I knew that they were using it in the state of Maine. Maine is one of my favorite places to visit, which is why I do bring it up a lot. But ranked choice voting is a different kind of voting system. It's an electoral system that allows people to vote for multiple candidates in order of preference. Instead of just choosing who you want to win, you fill out the ballot saying who's your first choice, your second choice, your third, and then more as needed for each position. So the reason that happens is because the candidate with the majority, so more than 50% of the first choice votes in an election that's like this is going to be the winner. But if no candidate gets a majority of first choice votes, then it triggers a new counting process. And the candidate who did the worst is then eliminated. And the candidates' voters' ballots are redistributed to their second choice pick. So basically, if the person was the first choice pick, then that person's the worst and it drops out, and the second choice pick goes to the very top of their list. In other words, if you ranked a losing candidate as your first choice and the candidate is eliminated, then your vote still counts. It just moves to your second choice candidate. And that process continues until there is a candidate that has the majority of the votes. And I thought it was super interesting that they're thinking about this in Oklahoma because it definitely takes power away from the two-party system and gives it to more people. In Oklahoma, there is a legislative group that's doing a study for this sort of election system. Many people are saying that it would be too costly here in Oklahoma. And then there's another group that is trying to ban it outright. They don't want that at all. Maine and Alaska are the main states. Maine and Alaska are the main states that they're studying to see how ranked choice voting is working in those states. So I'm really interested to see if they publish more about this, which I can usually count on the Oklahoman to publish more about things like this. So, what this would mean for Oklahoma voters is that there may be more choices on a ballot, meaning more competition for those people that are already in power in government. And it does take power away from the two-party system, like we said. So, that could be really interesting to see if that comes into play. Cool. Nice. I think that's really awesome that they're even thinking about it. All right. So MAPS 4 is just now starting. So MAPS is an Oklahoma City program that I think was voted in like the early 90s is the last thing that I read about that. But MAPS is a debt-free program in Oklahoma City, and it's funded by a 1 cent sales tax that the city of Oklahoma City, the people that live there, they vote on having this 1 cent sales tax so that they can be debt free on different projects. And it's the reason we see things like the river projects, the river sports, things like that. I want to say the Chesapeake Center, but it's actually called Paycom now. It's the reason for all of that. And it has been decades in the making. And it is probably the reason, one of the biggest reasons, that Oklahoma City went from being the 27th largest city in the US to the 20th largest city in the US. That is a big jump in population. It brings a lot of money into the state. So MAPS is currently expected to raise more than $1 billion between 2020 and 28. The funds are used for capital projects, neighborhood improvements, and job creating initiatives. So these are just a few of the things that are currently going on with MAPS. So one thing is that they are building this fairgrounds. Let me go back to it over here because I can't see it very well on that side. So a fairgrounds coliseum. So this is going to replace one of the arenas or the big arena, the Jim Norick Arena in the fairgrounds. And it's called, I guess they call it the Big House. I don't know. I didn't grow up here, but I don't really fair as we've established in the past few weeks. The new coliseum is expected to seat, and this is the mock-up here, it's expected to seat up to 7,500 people for like concerts, bull riding, and basketball games. It looks really cool, to be honest with you, and looks really clean and new. We like that. Yeah, $82 million from MAPS 4, $25 million from the city's hotel and motel tax, $5 million from the city's American Rescue Plan Act, and money from other resources by the fairgrounds. That's pretty cool. It did already break ground in February, and it will be completed in 2025. So that's right around the corner, it feels like. The next thing, which I don't know if you guys knew this, but we have a resort going up in Oklahoma City. And there is an intersection of 40, I-40 and I-35. So this is on the opposite side of the river sports area. It is where the First Americans Museum is. So right now you can see it going up, and you can see it on the edge here in this picture on the top left corner. But it's a big resort that does not include a casino, because casinos are not allowed within Oklahoma City city boundaries. But this resort is, I haven't seen too many mock-ups for it, but obviously I can see it going up and it's pretty cool. But they're going to build a pedestrian bridge across the river right here. So this river, if you guys didn't know, it's the Oklahoma River is what it's called. And there's a lot of training that goes on for water sports on this river. And we're actually, I believe, having the World Canoeing Finals in like either next year or in 25. I can't remember exactly which year, but it's a pretty big deal for Oklahoma to have this. There's a lot of activities that go on along the river right there. So we're pretty excited. The resort is called Okana, Okana. And I'm pretty excited to see what it's going to be like. And we need this sort of development in Oklahoma City, because it's just stuff that, we don't have. I did hear rumors that they did break ground on the big um, Veneta Disney World extravaganza this week as well. So maybe we need to talk about that soon. My mom is actually from Veneta. I used to spend a lot of time there. It's really interesting to me that they're bringing this huge thing there, but there is a really nice lake, so it makes a lot of sense. So maybe we'll talk about that soon as well, if you guys would like. The next thing, so Palomar, I'll get through these a little bit quicker, I promise. So Palomar is Oklahoma City's dedicated nonprofit to helping survivors of domestic violence and sexual abuse. One of my friends actually just got a job there, so I'm super excited for her. She just graduated law school. And so they're going to open this Oklahoma City's Family Justice Center, and they're breaking ground next year, and it's going to be one of the most impressive family justice centers in the nation, is what they're saying. So we're very excited to have that and to have that funded by MAPS. I'm pretty pumped to see that. Okay, next thing. We are getting a new animal welfare center, and it's in the design phase. It's supposed to start in about a year, if not less. It's such a sad picture of the dogs. The current shelter has endured multiple closures this year because of an upper respiratory infection. And I think it's just something that's really needed in Oklahoma, to have more shelter for the animals that are not homed yet. And then the next one is about people. So crisis centers for mental health and addiction with affordable housing. So these are some centers for mental health and substance abuse services in Oklahoma City. And the purpose here is to divert people away from the city jail. The city jail, how do I say this? Doesn't have a good reputation at all. It's really bad. So you can read all you want about that, I'm sure, in lots of different places. I definitely have, but basically lots of people have died there, and it's really sad, and it's really hard, and we definitely want to keep people who may not need to go to that kind of facility and go to a different kind of facility and get that spot put up for them. So yeah, that's what that's about. Okay, the last thing that I have for you, which I think is really interesting. If you guys haven't heard, there is a movie coming out soon called Killers of the Flower Moon. And Killers of the Flower Moon is all about the Osage Indians and the murders that happened from 1920 to 1925. And I'm just going to be honest with you. My mom gave me the book to read, and I didn't really like it. But I have a feeling I'll like the movie more. They've already shot it. It's supposed to come out this fall. I'm not really sure where that's at. I think I heard that it's supposed to still come out, even though with all the stuff that's going on right now with the writers. So it just wasn't, I guess, my kind of book, but it's a really interesting story about what happened. So basically from 1920 to 1925, there were dozens of mysterious or unsolved murders in Osage County. Osage County is like north of Tulsa. If you've heard of Pioneer Woman, she lives in Osage County. And there were articles about her this week, and the Killers of the Flower Moon as well. So these murders were relating to Osage headright holders, some of whom's deaths were never resolved. The tribe says that more than 60 people were murdered during 1920 to 1925. So I bring this up to talk about mineral rights in Oklahoma because it's a very interesting issue that we have. Oklahoma ranks number 6 in the U.S. for its production in crude oil from the U.S. So like Texas is number 1, but Oklahoma is number 6, which is pretty high up there in terms of producing crude oil. And Osage County was one of the early spots where they found crude oil. Okay, so According to the Osage Allotment Act of 1906, tribal members owned the right to subsurface materials within the Osage Nation Reservation in northern Oklahoma. So when oil was discovered, royalties were distributed equally to each allottee. It happens like this in Alaska, if I'm understanding correctly as well. So this equal share for each tribal member was called a head right, which this head right could actually be inherited by a non-Osage person if they were the immediate legal heir of the deceased tribal member. So go watch the movie. I'm excited for it. You can even read more about it. There's even a children's book, so maybe that would be more my speed. I'm not sure. But in Oklahoma, a lot of land is actually severed from its mineral rights. I was just having a conversation this week with one of my clients about this. What that means is most likely if you live in a house on a city lot anywhere, or even land that you haven't purchased in the past, let's say 40 years, most likely you do not own those mineral rights. You own only the surface rights of the house or the property, I mean. Someone else is going to own the mineral rights, and they have a right to drill on the land. Do they use it? I'm seeing this a lot south of like Purcell, which is south of Norman. And then it happens a lot in western Oklahoma. I haven't seen it as much in eastern Oklahoma, meaning east of I-35. Excuse me, east of I-35. So what I often see is that land far outside the metro that has been owned by maybe one or two families since 1907, which was statehood, those people might still own mineral rights, and then other people who have bought property in the past half a century probably don't own mineral rights. So if you're wondering if you own mineral rights or if you own the mineral rights to your property, you can actually find out. There are attorneys who do this specifically in Oklahoma. There is a database, but there's not like a comprehensive database. Like, it's not the easiest thing in the world. So if you need an attorney for this, just let me know. I know a couple that find mineral rights or try to figure out if you own the mineral rights. If there are leasing fees that come off of the mineral rights from something that you own and you don't claim them for a number of years, it goes into like a slush fund and you can never recover that money. So if you're worried about it or want to find out, then go find out if you think you have some money sitting out there. There's also it's called ownerrights.com. It's like a database of mineral rights owners, and you can go there and fill out a form and say that you own some mineral rights so people can more easily contact you, because we just don't have a good database of mineral right owners in Oklahoma. It works differently than in some other states. So that's what I have for you tonight. Thank you so much for joining. If you haven't already hit the like and subscribe button, go ahead and do that. If you hit the bell, then you'll be notified when I'm going live. So go ahead and hit that bell. Thanks so much for watching, and I will catch you next week.